I'm going to put the head on now, but I want to show you what I do. This is the head gasket. This one I sprayed with Permatext. Spray a gasket. Permatext spray gasket. High temp sealant. Made for head gaskets. Good stuff. It just gives me a peace of mind that, that it's not going to leak. Remember, I'm doing this professionally, which means I'm getting paid. So I've tried to get all the mistakes out. Here's another product, Permatext Ultra Copper Gasket. This stuff works well too, especially if you got a lot of dings and stuff. This stuff will seal it up so you don't leak. I also use this to seal the O-ring pipe, the O-rings in the pipes on the exhaust flange. Put this around here when you slide your pipes on, you won't have a bunch of oil leaking out of them. Yes, I know these are two different products, you geniuses out there. And yes, I know this isn't a bathtub, but I'll use silicone on every part of this motor, putting it together. And you know what? It doesn't hurt a thing. And it won't leak. Here we go. Gonna set this gasket here. Just like that. And I come in with our nice pump gas head that was machined down. Get a little performance out of it, and I just set it down. Now, there are 10 of these 12mm nuts, and I will crank them down to 22 foot-pounds. I believe the manual in the book, the service book, says 18 or 19, but I'll put it up. I like to crank them down just a little bit more when we're making more compression than the factory did. So I always do them about 22, sometimes 20, sometimes up to 25. Again, just depends on the compression I'm making. I've never gone over 25. No need to. I haven't had it leak. You don't want to be blowing out your head gaskets and O-rings. I leave this little water neck last here, and I don't put on the clutch side cover because I don't want that O-ring to pinch or bind and not seal. You can grease it up, but I still hesitant to move it in there. The head is on. Okay, we're going to take a squish test on this motor. I just do it with solder. You just got to make sure your solder is thick enough to take a squish test. This one I believe is like 0.062 or 0.065. I can't read it on there. It's probably on there somewhere. You can see. You take it, put a little bend on it. Always go in line with the wrist pin. Some guys will argue, well, you got to take it at all four corners. You can get piston rock. So the front and back is going to be false because the piston's going to rock on the wrist pin. That's why I don't do it on all four corners. If it's clearing side to side, you can do front to back, but just remember there's going to be a little rock, so it's not going to be totally consistent. Put it in line with the wrist pin, roll it through. You can feel it contact. Got my... I roll it into my set of calipers here. I squish down on it, not super tight, and just enough where I can get it out and show you that that's about 40 thousandths on that take. Bend the solder, get it in line with the wrist pin, left to right, get it up against the side of the cylinder, roll it through its stroke. Can feel it contact the solder, flattens it out. I take calipers and I will get a measurement on it. Squish down on it, not super tight. Make sure you can get it out of the calipers, and that one comes in at about 40 thousandths. We're going to put the intakes on really quick. Again, 1211 3-bond is your friend, or any silicone gasket maker that's impervious to gas and oil. I do it on the intake. I lay a gasket down. I do it on the gasket. You can see it's not a lot. It's just a little bit. I do this on the intakes especially because they're always prone to leakage. So I'll take the reed cages, stock reed cages with the backing plate still on, and just set them in there. The stock boots don't require a gasket. They have these little built-in O-rings. So you don't have to use a gasket. But again, these tend to leak so much. I don't use a gasket, but I use my 1211 3-bond, as you can see, just a little bit right around the edge, not on top of the O-ring, just around the edge where it will mate up with the flat surface of the stock reed cages. Then we use the size 5 stock Allens and put it all together. That about wraps it up. We'll do a leak down test on this and she'll be ready to ship home. I always throw a little grease on this O-ring so it doesn't get pinched. If this pinches, coolant will leak onto the top of the case, down through the case hole here that allows it to run onto the ground. Yes, there's a hole in the case up here between the intakes that goes straight down and will bleed anything off the top of the case. And I've had people go, I got a coolant leak coming off the bottom studs of my motor. They think there's water jackets on the bottom of this motor. But that always ends up being this coolant pipe leaking. It's good to have that little dowel pin there. It holds the clutch gasket in place. Got to make sure everything's seated right or the clutch cover won't go on. If anything feels like it's being forced, stop, take it apart and assess what is in the way. This big plastic bushing here wasn't pushed all the way in because the gear wasn't behind the idle gear. It's got to be either engaged flush with it or behind, so this plastic bushing can get all the way back. Like I say, watch all my videos. You'll always learn something new. I can't run into every single problem on one build. So there's lots of them up. I will continue to try and video when I have time so that you can see all the issues I run into. And when you go to do yours, hopefully it helps. I'm going to let all the 1211 3-bond set up, and I will leak test it tomorrow, and then she'll be on her way home. The final test before getting shipped out the door, the leak down test. You can buy these leak tester kits at Harbor Freight, or you can do a search on Google or any web browser and pick one up. It's just a gauge, pressure side, leak side, tube, run it into your spark plug hole. I grease it, it's got a little O-ring on it. Go down to the local hardware store, raid the sprinkler aisle, and just get sprinkler plugs. They even have drain pipe plugs. These are 1.5 pipe plugs, and just a hose clamp. They're in actually a bin. They've got a bunch of sizes, 1.25 up to 3 or 4 inch. Those are 1.5 for the standard Banshee flange. And you pump 6 to 8 pounds of air in it, and you wait and see if it bleeds off here. This going this way will mean the motor's bleeding off. You don't want to put over 10 pounds of pressure. This one's got 8. You let it sit 5 or 10 minutes. I usually walk away, do something else, and forget about it. I don't like any bleed off in my motors at all. Not 1 pound. So this can't move down at all for me to allow a motor to go out the door. That's why you'll see me using a lot of stuff like gasket sealer for the head, 3-bond for any of the mating surfaces, because I don't want to have to do this twice, and I don't want any air getting in the motor anywhere after the carburetors. That'll cause a lean condition and you will melt a piston. We'll let it sit and we'll ship it out. This will not bleed off at all. I already know it won't, but it'll sit for a while. That concludes another motor build. All stock with a little porting, carburetors, tours removed, and some jetting. And this little baby will do 65 horsepower at the wheels and just be an all-around good rider with power everywhere. On to the next build.